cold wind howled through the deserted streets of Darlington, rattling loose shutters and sending fallen leaves skittering across the pavement. The town library stood at the heart of the quiet square, its aged brick walls holding centuries of whispered knowledge. Inside, Emily sat at a wooden table beneath the dim, flickering glow of an overhead lamp. She clutched an open book in her hands, but the words blurred before her eyes, slipping away like water through her fingers. Her mind buzzed with distractions, text messages, social media posts, fragments of forgotten conversations. Frustration bubbled within her as she exhaled sharply. She tried to focus, pressing her fingers against her temples as if to physically push the chaos away. But every rustling page, every distant creak of the library's old wooden shelves shattered her concentration. A deep sigh escaped her lips. Exams loomed on the horizon, and yet no matter how hard she tried, her mind refused to stay still. She felt like a leaf in the wind, tossed from one fleeting thought to another. "Why can't I just focus?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible against the stillness of the library. A shiver ran down her spine as she became aware of someone watching her. At the far end of the room, in the shadows beyond the nearest bookshelf, an elderly woman sat in silence. She was dressed in a flowing white robe, her silver hair coiled neatly into a bun. Her face bore the marks of wisdom, deep lines carved by time and experience. But it was her eyes that held Emily captive, calm, deep, and knowing, as if they had seen the rise and fall of countless stories. The woman turned the page of her book with deliberate slowness, unfazed by the world around her. Emily couldn't help but stare. How could someone sit so still, so utterly immersed in their reading? It was as if the chaos of the world simply didn't exist for her. Then, as though sensing the weight of Emily's gaze, the woman lifted her head. A soft smile played at the corners of her lips, her expression one of quiet understanding. "You seem troubled, young one," she murmured, her voice as gentle as the wind stirring the pages of her book. The warmth in her tone made Emily's tense shoulders relax just a little. Emily hesitated before nodding. "I can't focus," she admitted. "Every time I try to study, my mind just wanders." The confession felt strange, as though she were exposing a secret vulnerability. The old woman closed her book with a measured motion and gestured for Emily to come closer. There was something oddly comforting about her presence, as if she carried an aura of peace that softened the sharp edges of Emily's anxious thoughts. "Would you like to hear a story?" the woman asked, her voice laced with something mysterious. "A story that might change the way you see everything?" There was an otherworldly quality to the way she spoke, as though she wasn't merely offering a story, but a revelation. Emily felt curiosity stir in her chest, breaking through the fog of her frustration. With a cautious nod, she pulled her chair closer, the wooden legs scraping softly against the polished floor. The woman took a slow, deliberate breath before beginning. A long time ago, in a small village cradled by towering mountains, there lived a girl named Isa. She was bright, full of dreams and ambition, but she had one great weakness. She could never hold her focus. Her mind would dart like a hummingbird, flitting from one thought to another, unable to settle. She longed to learn, to achieve great things, but no matter how hard she tried, distraction always won. The library seemed to grow quieter, the very air thickening with suspense as Emily leaned forward, drawn in by the story. Isa's grandmother, a woman wise beyond her years, watched her struggle. She had seen many in her lifetime lose themselves to the endless pull of distraction, and she knew Isa needed guidance. "Go to the mountain," her grandmother said one evening, her voice carrying the weight of generations. "There you will find a monk who can teach you the secrets of true focus." Isa, skeptical yet desperate, obeyed. She packed a small bundle of food and set off before the break of dawn. The journey was arduous. The mountain trails were steep and treacherous, winding through dense forests where shadows stretched long and deep. She stumbled more than once, her limbs aching from exertion, but she pressed forward. Each step felt heavier than the last, her doubts creeping in like unwelcome whispers. What if this was a waste of time? What if she was simply incapable of learning discipline? But still, she climbed, driven by the hope of something greater. At last, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, she reached the peak. There, nestled among the rocks, stood a humble wooden hut. Before it sat an old monk, cross-legged and motionless, as still as the mountain itself. The wind howled around him, yet he did not stir. His hands rested gently in his lap, his breath even, his presence unshaken by the world's disturbances. Isa hesitated, the weight of exhaustion and doubt pressing down on her. But then, summoning the courage she scarcely knew she had, she stepped forward and spoke. "Excuse me, are you the monk my grandmother spoke of?" The monk opened his eyes, meeting her gaze with a quiet intensity. "I am," he said simply. "Why have you come?" His voice was soft, but there was something unbreakable beneath it, a strength woven into his very being. Isa swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how foolish she must seem. "I can't focus," she admitted. "No matter how hard I try, my mind keeps slipping away. My grandmother said you could help me." She braced herself for dismissal, for disappointment, but the monk only nodded, as if he had been expecting her. "Then I will teach you," he said. "But first, a test." He reached beside him and lifted a small, delicate bowl filled to the brim with water. The surface shimmered in the golden light of the setting sun. "Take this," he instructed, handing it carefully to Isa. "Walk around this hut 3 times without spilling a single drop." Isa frowned, confused by the simplicity of the task. But she took the bowl in both hands, feeling the cool weight of it, and prepared to begin her test. She took her first cautious step, eyes locked on the water's surface. The slightest tremor of her hand sent ripples across the bowl, and her breath caught in her throat. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying distant sounds from the valley below. Her ears picked up the rustling of leaves, the call of birds, the chatter of unseen creatures. Her thoughts threatened to pull her away, but she forced herself to refocus. Step by step, she moved forward, gripping the bowl tighter. The moment she let her mind wander, a drop spilled over the edge. She froze, heart pounding.